Hello, everyone, and welcome back to coverage of Eternal Weekend North America. Right now, joining you for the first time today alongside my stalwart friend and colleague, Noah Walker. And Noah, I believe it is time for us to get stuck into the top 8 of our Legacy event. A very exciting time to be sure. I know people around the world will have been waiting for this moment, and I imagine you're just as pumped as I am to get stuck into the top 8 here and find out who will be crowned our champion.
Oh, I can't wait, Riley. I'm very excited.
We've got some extremely sweet decks. Obviously, goes without saying, we're playing Legacy. Obviously, there are all it's sweet decks all the way down.
True.
Throughout our top 8, and it's our plan to bring you as much magic as possible, of course, before we do finally crown a champion. But some housekeeping before we get underway with the matches. We've got a couple of things to bring you up to speed with, of course. First of all, most importantly, the prizes. There's our prize for the Vintage Championships, of course, as you can see. That Black Lotus, I believe, a painting, like a large, oversized version of it there. In addition to that Mental Misstep promo, I think that's like the only format in which you can still play Mental Misstep. But today we're focusing on Legacy, and we had a talk about this yesterday, Noah. Again, a Lightning Bolt special painting version of that. And then DRC, the new Delver, a special promo going out to our players in the top 8.
Yeah, I mean that's super sweet. There's enough for two play sets right in there. So that's
Uh,
pretty sweet.
not to forget, of course, the huge amount of prize money on the line here: 4K for first and for second, and then half that for third and fourth, and then $1,000 going all the way down to eighth place as well. So all of our players today richly rewarded for their efforts and their triumphs. And this tournament made possible by the support of our sponsors, cardtitan.com. If you head there right now, Eternal Weekend 2023 is the coupon code you can use to get 10% off any order you place. And the same goes for GameGenic. We're enormously appreciative to both GameGenic and Card Titan for supporting this week's broadcast. Use Eternal Weekend 2023. Once again, the code there will get you 10% off your order at both of these places. Let's have a look at our bracket now. We can check out what this top 8 is looking like, how it's shaping up. And Noah, before we talk about the players individually, let's have a chat about some of the decks because there are some matchups here that I don't think any of us were really expecting.
Yeah, a fairly diverse top eight. I want to say, there's two copies of Boros Painter, the four color aggro deck, and Grixis Delver are like semi similar, but other than that, we have virtually six different archetypes. So a really diverse top eight.
And of course, the two painted decks just happen to be against each other, as that's the way that particular cookie crumbled. So we're guaranteed a painted deck in the semis at least. But that's not where we're kicking things off. We're going to have a look and meet our players now for our first quarterfinal, starting with Cass Lynn. Now, Cass on an absolute tear throughout the Swiss, as you can imagine. It took a long time for her to pick up her first loss. She's playing a deck called Cradle Control. Tell us what's going on with this list, Noah.
Yeah, Cass is playing. I'd say I wouldn't say her list is super duper stock or whatever, but it's pretty close to what I would expect to be looking at for an elves list nowadays.
Mm.
I'd say the biggest difference is, as she said, her invigorate and Atraxa overperforming. That she has one copy of invigorate and then also one copy of Atraxa to get off of natural order. And then for Fiend Artisan seems to be like the new norm in elves decks nowadays. So
Interested to see that she says that her testing was perfect, she played perfect, and she is so smart. Well, that'll be put to the test once again here in our top 8. And Cass's opponent, let's have a look at who she's up against here. Bryant Cook playing the Epic Storm. So this is another combo-based deck here that Noah, I'm very glad you're here to help us get through. But a recent card, Beseech the Mirror, a standout for Bryant this weekend. Is this a list that has also sort of changed a fair bit recently?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's even a bunch of different ways to build that the Epic Storm. The Epic Storm specifically kind of coined by Bryant himself. Has been playing this deck for a really long time. I truly believe that his list is very well thought out and very good. And it seems like Beseech the Mirror in combination with Gaia's Will is the new way that people are looking to abuse Storm decks. So really cool stuff.
Seems that Bryant also doesn't just have his eye on the prize money and those special promos as well. Looks like got his eye on the heart of a certain producer of this very
Oh,
stream. So we'll see if his success wins Anurag over at all as we head into our match now. Castellin on the left-hand side of your screen, Brian Cook on the right. Time to get underway with the first quarterfinal here at Eternal Weekend North America. What a pleasure it is to have your company. We've got Elves versus Storm here, and it's going to be Cass opening things up on turn 1 with Allosaurus Shepherd.
yeah, pretty standard stuff. Starting off the server, not too insane in this matchup. Because it doesn't really facilitate mana for her very much. Much better against like the Delver decks, what have you. But it's still, it's really important to get low to the ground when you're playing this elf deck, or as she coined it, Cradle control. So
Well, that's what I was going to say, because we can get into the name of this list, whether we're calling it elves or not. It doesn't actually have that many elves.
yeah, I think that's probably why. 'Cause when you'd see an elf deck, you'd expect like Wirewood symbiotes,
Another
Elvish
famous elf.
Sentinels, a bunch of the stuff that's going to give you a bunch of mana that way. And instead, she's just playing a bunch of really efficient green creatures. You see 4 Endurance, 4 Fiend Artisan, 4 Elvish Reclaimer, Noble
And
Hierarch, and
the
Noble
mana dorks
Hierarch.
aren't even elves, right? Noble
Yeah,
hierarchy,
exactly.
noble hierarchy. We've got humans, we've got goblins. Anyway, let's talk about what's going on the other side of the screen here, because it's all popping off with Bryant Cook. Talk us through this, Noah, because this is a somewhat complicated deck to follow.
So it looks like we saw Chrome Mox into Dark Ritual, into Beseech the Mirror. When you cast Beseech the Mirror, if you sacrifice an artifact, you can just straight up cast the spell, or sorry, the whatever you're tutoring for. Looks like he chose Song of Creation, a really interesting one, not one that you would generally see, as his isn't in English. It's you may play an additional land on each of your turns, and whenever you cast a spell, you draw 2 cards. So I think his plan is to just cast as many 0-cost spells as he can from this point, and eventually amass a win with Tendrils of Acne.
All right, well, let's get into it here. A Veil of Summer is followed up there by a Chrome Mox there. Hard to see because of the glare, but I believe that's a Chrome Mox.
Yeah, a nice foil signed Chrome Mox. Bryant, a big fan of legacy cards, as you can see
like
here.
it, as you can see. Yep. So now a Mox Opal as well. Love the way that he's counting his Storm count here with those little tokens. That's very cool. And wow, okay, just discards his hand.
Oh wow,
But
looks like he couldn't keep going.
yeah, kind of whiffed, but in this situation, not too bad. Going to untap with access to 4, potentially 5 mana. And Cass isn't coming out of the gate super quick here, right? We've seen some elf decks that can really just go off kind of turn 1, turn 2, dump a bunch of permanents into play. Hasn't happened yet so far, right? Veil of Summer once again. Draws 2 with the song. And discard. All right.
Oh, no
once
blue
again.
source,
Looks
couldn't
like
cast the
yeah,
Ponders.
two ponders, right? And because the Mox Opal doesn't tap the mana. The Dryad Arbor, the pickup here for Cass, searching that up with fetch land.
Yeah, not
So
having
what
a third artifact, brutal. His turn just kind of have been mopey. The 2 lands that he has in play, being Bayou and Taiga, doesn't actually cast that much of his deck. So he's gonna need a good it's not like he's under that much pressure from cast here. Luckily, Bryant is doing okay, but he needs a better string of spells and mana than what he's been getting to actually keep going in this game.
All right, a Greenstone Zenith 2 here. Greenstone Zenith gets shuffled back into the library, of course, as Cass fetches out a Collector Oof. Now, that's going to be a bit of an issue here, given that half of Bryant's mana sources are artifact-based. So that'll really slow things down.
Yeah, that's a huge one for Cass. It kind of makes it so that Bryant needs even more.
Alright, Song of Creation trigger is put on the stack.
Looks like she's got an Endurance in hand, and making the consideration if, they just want to let Bryant take it, or... Yeah, it looks like the decision was to cast the Endurance.
Okay, Endurance flashed in. Graveyard will be tucked under the library here. And now Bryant is able to draw his 2 cards off of that copy of Thoughtseize, which gets rid of Once Upon a Time. There's a name I've not heard in a long Once Upon a Time. Banned again out of basically every format. Legacy is the only place you can still play that card, right?
Yeah, Legacy. I don't know if it's banned in Vintage. Probably not. I don't think Vintage really has a ban list, so it makes sense that you can play it in Vintage. But yeah, it's a very rare card to see. You know, I was watching a little bit of the Vintage coverage earlier, and like I just forgot how like the words that were even on Oko because that's how long it's been since I played it. You know, like. So
Yeah, for sure. It's and that's the great thing about these old formats. You get to see these cards that were just way too good for more or less every single constructed format, but Vintage and Legacy can often absorb that power level, and you can still get some use out of these cards. And of course, I guess you can still play Once Upon a Time in Commander, but it's a little less impressive there.
Yeah, it's nice to see these cards have a home somewhere.
All right, now a Ponder. I'm going to shuffle off that, and right now sitting with 3 cards in hand, and whips again. Oh man, this is rough stuff. That really being held up on blue mana here. Hey.
I mean, the Shepherd is gonna put in some good work here. The fact that this Cradle allows her to activate it. What, each elf? So there is some elves.
No, I don't. I think the only elf is the actual
Just the Shepherd
itself, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
It looks like it was enough though, still to put on the beats. Which I would say, like the game 1 is going to be the toughest game for the Cradle deck and for Cass in this matchup. So it sucks if you're a Bryant fan, if you're a Storm fan, or you know you just rooting for the favored deck to win. You know, I would say I would expect this Epic Storm deck to win way more often than it would lose the game ones in this matchup. You know, Cass doesn't have too many cards that really interact with Bryant's game plan. He got off an early Beseech, and then it just looked like his mana base was so shaky he wasn't able to make anything out of it. So congrats to Cass, well played.
Yep. Picking up the dub in game number 1, really important against decks like the Epic Storm, which are, I would say, you know, this is the definition of a game 1 deck, right? This is a deck that comes in, takes advantage of the fact that there isn't that specialized disruption to take care of combo decks like this. And universally across the board, is this a fair statement? Across the board, Storm decks get worse after sideboard.
Yeah, I think that is just like a really good way to look at the construction of these Storm decks and like how sideboards are a lot in Legacy. It's like you show up, you know, if your opponent doesn't have Forcible in their deck or a lot of like really cheap interaction, you can just get away with a free win a lot of the times. And then game 2, when they know what you're playing or their deck has more just general interaction for your strategy, things can get a little bit tougher. But you know, nowadays I would say Storm decks and like are more resilient than ever. You know, you get to play 4 main deck copies of Veil of Summer. You have these discard spells, other stuff like that. It even looks like Bryant's playing 3 copies of Galvanic Relay, which is not a typical card that you see in most Storm builds. I think that's just like another additional way for him to have a little bit more value, be a little bit less all in than you might see some Storm builds be. So really cool stuff.
Well, here things are looking better for Bryant, as I believe Caslin was down to just 5 cards, a double mulligan here,
Yeah.
and then gets hit by a Thoughtseize, which removes Force of Vigor. So I think you can see we've sped this match up a little bit, or maybe these players are just extremely swift with the way that they're handling their cardboard, because we do have a lot of magic to get through today, and we want to make sure we get across as much of it as possible. So the opener, the Noble Hierarch on turn number 1 here for Cass. Bryant, brainstorm time, baby.
Yeah, pretty typical stuff. At least Cass, you know, still starting off with some mana. It's really important for her to get to the ground early in this matchup. Like I said before, Bryant's mana base already a little bit better this game, but him missing a land drop after casting this Brainstorm is horrible.
Yeah, you sort of brainstorm locked out, right? Because it means that Brian's not going to be playing a land for the next, 2 turns? 3 turns, maybe?
Yeah,
Another Hierarch. And a
and
Collector Oof as well. Okay, here's a Ponder. Let's hope that we can find something here. I think we're probably just going to see... Oh, no. Must have found a land. Yes, there it is. Okay, so that's going to shuffle away those 2 cards that were put on top by Bryant.
I mean,
Be
that's
happy with that.
huge for Bryant.
Yeah.
Getting a shuffle effect from the brainstorm, getting that second land into play. This collector oof from cast though is going to be really really tough for him to beat. And like he has enough mana in his deck to just go off with rituals, but the Mox Opals, the Chrome Moxes, the Lotus Petals, the LEDs, they're really really important and pivotal to his game plan.
Yeah, there are only 14, well, I say only, there are 14 artifacts in this deck, and they are really, really important. And this is going to make things even more difficult now for Bryant. Gaddock Teague, which doesn't shut off all of Bryant's deck, but it does shut off some very important cards. Beseech the Mirror, probably the most important of them, and you can't cast a Tendrils with Teague out.
Yeah, really hard to win the game when your win condition is a 4-cost sorcery.
Yep.
So Bryant is gonna need one of his answers. Looks like from a sideboard. Let's see, Consign to Oblivion. Doesn't have that much to actually answer creatures in play. Echoing Truth, something that he's probably looking towards right here. Grape Shot, another good one. Yeah, you could play a bunch of spells. Grape Shot probably the best one actually. If you could string together like 4+ spells, kind of clear off this Oof and this Gaddock Teague, and even the rest of Cass's permanents. If you can cast enough spells.
Yeah, I think Grape Shot is probably the best answer to not even win, but just get back in this game, because this is a pretty hateful board that's been put together by Cass here. The Collector Oof, the Gaddock Teague, these bears doing what they do best, getting up extra early in the morning so they've got more time to hate. And Bryant now.
I mean, this is really ideal for Bryant.
Dark Ritual. All right, here we go.
Just not having that many artifacts being his source of mana here. As I say, he plays two Chrome Moxes, but he's just using them for Storm and not for mana.
Not even exiling cards under... Oh, no, he's going to exile... Oh, exiles a Tendril under one of them. The other one it doesn't tap for mana. Bryant's got a game plan here, yeah, and it involves a Grape Shot, killing both of the 2/2s.
Oh, and then I think we're going to see a Beseech as well. Really, really well played here from Bryant.
Wow. If this last card is a Beseech, then this turn is lined up very, very neatly indeed here. Two black mana. Because, yeah, if this card is a Beseech, then you can cast the Beseech, sacrifice the Mox with nothing underneath it, and then you're off to the races.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, he doesn't have anything else in his hand. He might just get, like, Song of Creation Pass, but even that is, like, super duper strong based on all the mana sources that he has in play, not really under too much of a clock anymore from cast, so he's got a lot of options here. He doesn't have the Tendrils in his deck any longer, as we see it exiled under this Chrome Mox, so surprised to see him do nothing with the mana. I don't know if that was just a bluff that he was tapping for, what other 4 mana options he really had in that spot, so interesting.
Maybe he brought in the second Tendrils and was going to use it to just gain a little bit of life, you know what I mean? With the Storm count at 4 or 5. That's probably a very high level play that most people wouldn't see. Orcish Bowmasters now for Cass is flashed in end of turn. That's going to provide a little bit more pressure. In comes the 1/1 Orc army and a Green Sun Zenith for 3 here.
Maybe seeing a Grist here. I don't know what else you would want to fetch up. It's a 3-drop.
Endurance.
Yeah, you could get Endurance as well. Nothing in the board.
No, it's just a Feign Artisan. Okay.
Just paying extra for fun. Just in case. I respect it.
Just in case you go through your life, you're like, ooh, I forgot about this.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually so respectable. She's like, you know what? I'm not using this other mana anyways. I might as well just tap out.
Might as well. Yeah, because you're not attacking with the 0/1 Exalted. It's the Orc army getting in, getting some lunch. Thanks to those Exalted triggers. All right, got a lot of mana here. Now,
it was Beseech.
Into Beseech. Okay.
Huh. Maybe Bryant decided that he couldn't do anything with the rest of his turn, so he wanted to maybe take a draw step and then go for a Beseech. I'm curious to see why he
Yeah,
made that decision. I think this is
which is
just gonna
good of
have to
his
be
personally.
an empty the Warrens or something like that, just to make some tokens just to survive. I don't really see a way that he could win the game this turn. Cass has just been playing. Oh, another one. That makes sense. So he's just gonna
Okay.
cycle some Beseeches. Oh wait, I guess he could
Beseech
go
into
Guy as well.
Beseech.
Actually, he has enough in his graveyard where he could maybe go off with a Guy as well here. Actually,
240 Trios
Okay,
players.
so
Your
guys will.
seeds have been posted at the party
You just
line
cast that, right?
posted
It's
on
a
the
suspend card, but once
Once
if you
again,
cast it off the Beseech, you
240
just get the
Trios
effect.
players.
exactly.
Your
After you
seeds have
sacrifice
been
an
posted
artifact,
at
which he
the
did. So now he
Yes.
just basically gets Yawgmoth's will effects going on.
Yes.
Has a lot of stuff in his graveyard, and like you were saying, Riley, I think he might have actually brought in the second tendrils. So I think he can actually just end up comboing this turn. I think he'll have enough storm
Oh, I was
to retake.
joking. I was actually joking. I didn't think he would.
Does he have the second one in his board?
He does have sec two tendrils, but
Yeah, yeah.
I
He
just
probably brought
assumed
it
he
in.
always okay. Well,
No, he probably did
of
just
course.
because the life gain is actually relevant in this matchup. And even if he didn't, there's a grape shot in his graveyard. He could just clear off, cast his whole board, play like some ponders and stuff.
So me being dumb, pretending that I was like just making a bit of a jape and a jest, actually
Yeah.
stumbled upon a quite a high level. Wow, I really just should have said that super straight and not mucked around with it because I would have sounded like an absolute genius. All right. Well, we live and learn, or in my case, we live. So Chrome Mox Opal, all this stuff coming out of the bin. So guys, will as you mentioned, sort of this card that is a lot like Yawgmoth's will, except obviously uncastable from your hand. You have to suspend it. Beseech the Mirror gets around that very neatly. And we're seeing Bryant go off King.
Yeah, what looks like he's at 3, 6, 9, 11 storms so far. So he only needs to cast 7 more spells to be able to win with a grape shot, and I think that's what he's planning on here. Maybe he didn't bring in the oh, he's Burning Wish, so that's why he always has tendrils in his board. Duh. So he's never going to bring that tendrils in. He's always going to Burning Wish for it. Here's a spot where he can.
Okay, thank goodness. I was worried that I might have just been completely on the wrong track, but yeah. So a double tendrils there will be more than enough. That's a really nice win from Bryant there, who really did seem to be under the pump there for a little bit. Cass was able to leverage some of those cards that are really difficult for the Storm player to play through, but that first grape shot turn, Noah able to clear the board and then was able to go off the next turn thanks to Beseech the Mirror, which really does seem to be an absolute game changer in this deck. It was a card that Bryant identified as being really important new addition, and from what we've seen there, it has completely changed the way that this deck operates.
It looks like an excellent addition to me. It seemed like just better than what people were doing in the past. Looked incredibly strong. Bryant really well played there. Identifying that he needed a grape shot to possibly win the game, basically going down to 0 cards in hand, being under a lot of pressure, and then holding the Beseech the Mirror, knowing that he couldn't get as much value as he wanted on that turn, saving it for the next turn, and then winding up to find a win with it. Really well played from Bryant.
Recognizing that he probably wasn't dead, Cass still used all her mana, played the Orcish Bowmasters, was able to get into some damage, but it wasn't enough. But I will say, Cass also did an incredible job on a mulligan to 5, right? Taking Bryant right down to the wire there.
Yeah, what she moved to 5, and then he also thought seized,
Mm.
and it was still a game. So yeah, really just good stuff from everybody.
So here, an interesting choice for Bryant to make with this Thoughtseize. Cass kept 7 this time, and the Thoughtseize reveals a bunch of creatures and a Thoughtseize. Now, Thoughtseize as a Storm player is never a card you want to see in your opponent's hand, but I don't believe that Cass has a way to cast it other than this Ignoble Hierarch that's on the battlefield. So it is castable next turn, and Bryant, what do you take here?
Yeah, I mean it's tough. If you're Bryant, you don't love seeing a Thoughtseize, right? Like your deck is a combo deck that goes off based generally around the cards in your hand, so the Thoughtseize is really annoying. But then so is Natural Order. I know that Cass can't cast this Natural Order immediately, but in a few turns she could, and it would be a little brutal. But I think that he's identified that he could probably win the game in a few turns, and just dealing with some huge Atraxa or something against a deck that doesn't have much to grab from the Atraxa. Like if Cass's deck was kind of comprised of
Oh
uh
boy.
yeah, just stop me dead in
Wow.
my tracks with drawing this collector
Sorry.
roof.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not
no,
sure.
I agree. Like I don't know what to say anymore. I just
And there's a
that
second thought seize, and that explains so much. So if Bryant had that in hand, he was
yeah.
able to plan the game that he wanted to play around removing the thought seize first, natural order second. But the one place that thought seize doesn't protect you from is the top of the opponent's library, and that is where Cass found Collector Oof, and that is going to be a huge obstacle for Bryant to overcome. You can see he reeled in his chair when the card was played because it really threw a spanner in the works for the poor bloke. So now he has to find a way to beat this card, which has come up in every single game. Cass tuned it up in game number 1 and then was able to play it in game 2 and 3 here. And it's such a difficult... Oh, and Bryant recognises that Collector Oof is just going to carry this game. It's hitting for 4 every turn thanks to the Exalted triggers. And Bryant's a guy who knows his deck in and out. He looked at the cards and he's like, nope, it's not on there. That's not happening this time. So full credit to Cass here, playing an absolute blinder. Game 1 looked terrific. Game 3, finding the exact correct card that she needed off the top of the library in order to take the game out. A one-off across the 75, I believe, unless there were extra copies in the sideboard.
Yeah, one of
So she did very, very well to leverage that key card in this matchup.
essentially a 5 of, right? Like she could have just drawn a Green Sun Zenith. So
True.
it does look, it always looks lucky when they draw like the bullet that they would get. But if you just imagine that it's a Green Sun Zenith, it just makes yourself feel a little bit less bad. That's what I like to do. And
Yeah.
it's like that game was particularly tough for Bryant just because he took so much damage off of the 2 Thoughtseize that Cass drawing the oof, yeah, it shut down some of his mana. It was also just a clock for 4 damage, and then she also had the endurance in hand, which was an even faster clock. So he took too much damage, kind of brainstorm locked himself out. Yeah, well played by both of them.
Mono Green Stompy gets the job done against the evils of the combo menace here in our first quarterfinal. But look, full credit to Bryant as well, doing very well to get all the way to the top 8 of the Legacy Championships here. But we will be seeing more of Cass in the semi-finals. However, right now, I believe before much longer, we're going to jump into our second quarterfinal. And for that, let's check in with our players here. Wyatt Gibson with Cephalid Breakfast, a deck that I definitely want to chat to you about as we get into this quarter, Noah. And because it's a deck that did very, very well indeed. And I'll offer my apologies ahead of time in advance to our second quarterfinalist in this matchup here. I'm gonna do the best I can. Jay Wojciechowski, I guess. My apologies, Jay. Certainly, as an idiot Anglophone, it is a little tricky to get these names correct sometimes. But in any case, Grixis Delva getting him all the way to our top 8. You and I watched him play yesterday when I think he was towards, if not at the top of the Swiss, and it looked like Jay was in a very commanding spot with this deck that he's obviously played a lot in the past. This is a legacy stalwart, this strategy, and it's unsurprising to see at least one Delver deck in our top 8 today.
Yeah, Jay's been crushing it with this Grixis Delver deck all weekend, right at the top of the standings. Like you said, no surprise to see him here making the top 8.
Fans of Legacy, or even people who are peripherally aware of Legacy, will know what Grixis is all about. Play a cheap threat, defend it through efficient interaction, daze, force of will, stifle. Let's talk about Cephalid Breakfast. It is 26 minutes past 6 in the morning here on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. I've already had my breakfast. I chose to have muesli, not a cephalid. But let's talk about the breakfast that's available, the Breakfast of Champions here, Cephalid Breakfast, with the namesake card Cephalid Illusionist giving this deck its name. What's going on with this list? Why is it called Cephalid Breakfast, and what's its game plan?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I would say, one of the more obscure combo decks in Legacy for people a little bit less familiar with it. You have a Cephalid Illusionist in play, and Cephalid Illusionist says whenever it becomes a target of a spell or ability, you put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, and then you use something like a Nomad's Encore to keep targeting your Cephalid Illusionist over and over again to mill your whole library, or a copy of Shuko. And you mill over 3 Narcomoebas, and then you sacrifice them to Dread Return and bring back a Thassa's Oracle. So it's like a very obscure deck that takes a bunch of like very unplayable cards to just kill your opponent. But it has the upside of a lot of these cards being creatures and being able to be like kind of a beat down secondary plan as well. And I think Orcish Bowmasters really plays well into that plan.
Yeah, Orcish Bowmaster is probably the best example of a card that is not included for its combo potential, but just because it's almost kind of too good not to play. Now, Noah, you did give us a thoroughly comprehensive rundown of the deck itself, how it wins, how it operates, what's important to it. I do notice you dodged one of my questions, though, mate. I do notice that you were avoiding the key piece of information that everyone wants to know. Why is this deck called Cephalid Breakfast?
You know what? I don't even know. Probably you should ask someone more knowledgeable than me.
We got to get a proper.
We need a real legacy historian. Like I'm just a faker. Yeah,
it was a
like
trend
Julian.
years ago, right? About where like decks were named after breakfast cereals, right? Like there was Cheerios.
Yeah.
There was Captain Crunch, I think. I don't know. There was, that breakfast cereal mono red aggro. I love that. So
yeah, that's my favorite.
So I think it comes from that, but I don't ever remember seeing a Cephalid breakfast in the supermarket. But who knows? In any case, that's the name given to this combo deck. We'll see if it goes off. But right now, Wyatt not doing a whole lot of comboing, just playing out the Orcish Bowmasters. Jay had a DRC removed by the first one. Second copy of Dragon Rage Channeler coming down for him. We call this Delver. It still is, technically speaking. Jay is playing 2 copies of Delver of Secrets, but Noah, you and I have noticed this weekend a concerning trend. The Delver of Secrets, our special Wriggly insect boy, seems to be on the way out, superseded by newer, flashier threats.
People are just haters. They don't understand. They haven't been through what Delver's been through.
Noah's entering his get off my lawn, you damned kids phase
exactly.
at the age of 15. It's a terrible thing to see, man.
What can I say? It's just I'm just a well-oiled Delver lover, and it hurts me to see, my fellow boomer cards just slowly lose traction.
He's not out there glomping his Riz or whatever it is that Zoomers do these days.
No Riz. I'm Rizless. All I have is Delver of Secrets.
I'm gonna stifle the search trigger.
No Riz or Delver.
Yeah.
The Noah Walker story. Noah has about as much Riz as he has basics in his Delver deck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
which
what
is to say, a 0. All right, DRC is going to get in there, and it's back to Wyatt Gibson.
Yeah, looks. Jay decided to stifle the Saga Trigger, which I'm a little surprised to see. There's not too many cards in Wyatt's deck that he's like super looking forward to grabbing off of the Saga Trigger. But at the same time, I don't think Jay has like too many options when it comes to stifle in the matchup, aside from just stopping Wyatt from winning the game, right? Like he could just let Wyatt mill out his entire deck, put Thassa's Oracle into play, and then just decide to stifle that. So
Trigger's still on the stack.
So Flusterstorm here.
Okay.
And a Wasteland to follow up for Jay. Wyatt is stuck on one land after that Wasteland.
Wait.
1 sec.
yeah, well, it's not looking too likely for Wyatt to be able to assemble any sort of like a combo in this specific game. He doesn't have very many resources as far as like lands. Doesn't have that many cards in his hand. Clearly doesn't have like any of his combo pieces in play. So he's kind of riding really heavily on this Orcish Bowmasters. And I see that Jay does have a lightning bolt in his hand. I'm a little bit surprised not to see him use it on the Bowmasters, just because so many of the cards in this Grixis Silver deck are based around drawing cards. Like, you've got these Ponders, you've got these Brainstorms.
I think I realized
a lot of the live draws in this deck are going to require him to
I
answer
looked
the
at
Bowmasters.
the card before.
I did say I'll trigger the stack.
Looks like there's a slight
In my head, it was
misunderstanding,
resolving,
miscommunication
and
between the two
it was
players
just
here.
resolving. So I
think it's about the
didn't think
life
about it.
totals.
I don't think there's a difference.
So what ended up happening is
Yeah.
Jay
That should be
cast
great.
Unholy
Yeah,
Heat
That's all it is.
with the dragon and with the Dragon Trace Channeler
But
trigger
that's
on the
something I got to look at a
stack.
card.
Wyatt ended up
Oh, you did, I guess you gave him a little
casting
bit.
the Flusterstorm. And Jay resolved the trigger from the Dragon's Rage channeler before he decided whether or not the spell was resolving. So it was like just a little bit of out of order sequencing, I'd say. He didn't actually he confirmed, but then I think it was just like a little bit of miscommunication. So it doesn't.
Right. Okay. All right. So they're going to rewind the game here. They're going to take things back a little bit and make sure this play is straightened out. So the Unholy Heat is back on the stack. The Fluster Storm on the stack as well.
And then this is back in hand.
And it's good that that was caught at a point where we could rewind things to make sure that it didn't get too out of control here.
Yeah, didn't want to give Jay too much extra information before he decided whether or not he was going to do something with his Fluster Storm. So.
And then I take a look. Yeah.
Okay, so now the Unholy Heat is countered by the Fluster Storm, and now Joe can surveil and make a decision about the card that's on top based on the fact that the DRC is indeed dead. Some minor tectonic activity ripping through the hall there seems to have settled down, and now the Dragon Rage Channeler getting in for an attack. Plays the Wasteland, shifts it over to Wyatt. No harm, medium foul, we move on.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, like I see this Lightning Bolt in Jay's hand, and I am just so curious as to what he's saving it for, if not Orcish Bowmasters. You know, looking at the Cephalid Breakfast list, there's very few cards that you're even gonna want to Lightning Bolt. It's like, yeah, you could maybe kill an Illusionist or like a Nomads, but he's got a Pyroblast, so I don't know if he even needs
I
it.
don't believe I have blue.
I don't think so.
Let's go 16.
All right, DRC gets in once again. The Retrofitter Foundry play here
16,
for
13.
Wyatt. It's a weird one for sure.
A 5/5.
Cool. Commander card, I believe. Yeah, printed in Commander 2018 for the first time, and can make little tokens.
Yeah, Retrofitter Foundry kind of just a concession to like wanting a card that is good with Urza Saga. Like he's playing 2 Shukos, which is like part of the combo. You know, it's something to be able to search up. But it's just a little bit more value to get something like Retrofitter Foundry. Pretty interesting one. I would say it's like surprisingly common card that is. Its value is more in existing as a 1-cost artifact with the potential to do something than actually ever activating its abilities.
Just something that can provide a threat if you need it.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Wyatt now. Swords to Plowshares on the Murktide Regent. A very
it's
efficient
5
answer
from
to a
13
very efficient threat.
18. Oh yeah, I thought you said 15. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Joe gains some life. And Wyatt is able to launch an attack once again.
I head backwards. Yeah. Sorry.
Yep.
This Dragon Rage Channeler gets in. Oh, sorry, the Orcish Bowmaster gets in for 1. Dragon Rage Channeler, of course, at this stage, just a 1/1. It hasn't been chucked up into there. It hasn't grown its wings just yet. Double Bolt. Pyroblast.
Looking like the second bolt kind of gives Jay a good reason to use at least one of them to get rid of this Orcish Bowmasters. I'd be surprised not to see the Wasteland taking out the Tundra. And then he's just a sorcery or an artifact away from turning on this Dragon's Rage Channeler and making it so that the Orc army doesn't have an opportunity to block. So if I'm Jay, I'd be really, really interested in using this Lightning Bolt on the Orcish Bowmasters.
Elects not to. Does have the Surgical Extraction in hand as well. This is game 2. It's worth pointing out this is game 2. We didn't mention that at the beginning of the match, but this is game 2 here. Jay up a game. Bowmasters gets in with the Orc army. And we are going to see a Lightning Bolt finally deployed on the Bowmasters, which will trigger the DRC. Jay not missing that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like this as well, right? When there is that slight disruption because of a rules misunderstanding or a misapplication or whatever, being extra careful the next time around, being really, really surgical with your play, making sure that you're doing the right thing at all time. I really like that from Jay. It shows that he's taking it seriously, doesn't want to be a sloppy player. So I do like to see that.
Ooh, this is really tight here from Wyatt. Playing the Bowmasters.
Sure, yeah.
But is Delirium activated now?
Yeah, so since Jay milled this null rod, it activated Delirium, but it would be 1 damage from the Orcish Bowmasters, and then 2 damage from the army, because the second Bowmasters would put a second counter on it.
Yes.
So it would actually end up trading for the Dragon's Race Channeler. And then Jay just electing to use Lightning Bolt on the army. So
yeah, on the army in order to make sure that the DRC sticks around. All right. I'm happy Jay was with that draw.
The Seeker thing was a little sloppy.
Yeah.
Because Jay can do it in a way where Wyatt is left with no army, but it's tough. There was so many moving pieces, so much stuff going on. It was just a little bit hard to identify what was even going on.
You wait for the trigger to resolve, and then bolt the army. Yeah. Well, as it is now, DRC gets in.
Yep.
And we're going to see Retrofitter Foundry come online, make a little servo.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely real. Like in a spot like this, like I was saying, it's kind of like, I would say it's like kind of the mascot of the deck. But then when you have nothing else to do with your mana, like it gets real pretty quickly.
All right, Red Elemental Blast or Pyroblast. No one can tell. There's it's impossible to determine which one it is.
That one's red.
Gonna take care of the Brainstorm. That one's red. I can say it's red. It's obviously a red card. Yeah.
No, it's red. Red Elemental.
Yeah, it's a red card. No, we get that. That's why we bring Noah in. We bring him in. That's why he gets the big bucks. He's able to identify the card, the color of key cards. There's another red card there. No, look at that one. That one getting in.
Oh, wait, are you sure?
I'm actually very colorblind, so no.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to take your word on it. Dude.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. Okay, so REB and the difference between REB and Pyroblasts,
Boomerang.
very minor, right?
Yeah, it's like one is really old, and that's Pyroblast, and then one is like incredibly old, and that's the art on that one.
Yes. Yeah. And they both do almost exactly the same thing, although you can target non-blue permanents with Pyroblast if you need like an extra storm count or something like that.
Wow. And who's the expert now?
I just learned that one time, and it makes you sound really smart if you point it out, because if you just need like a way, let's say you had to surveil or something, you can cast your Pyroblast on your DRC. It just doesn't do anything, right? Whereas you can't do that with REB because it has to target a blue permanent.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Narcomoeba Beasts, the au natural Narcomoeba here, dude. How do we feel about that?
You know what I think we're gonna see here is Jay is gonna Pyroblast this Narcomoeba so that he can try to finish off Wyatt with the Lightning Bolt and an attack with the DRC. I think that's what we're about to see.
Yep, yeah, because the Narcomoeba does have flying. There's a 2-mana 1/1 flyer. One of the weirder cards, as are so many that came out of that Time Spiral block.
Yeah.
So a Brainstorm in the midst of being resolved here for Wyatt.
Doesn't look like Wyatt has very much they can do. I mean, he could play this Ponder, hope to find like some sort of interaction here, but doesn't have too much. Unless that's a Prismatic Ending in his hand. Which, if it is, he could find a White Source and then just be like very much alive. Let me see. It does look like he has 2 Prismatic Endings in his sideboard, so I think that might be a Prismatic Ending. So,
Plays an Urza Saga and passes the turn here to Jay. And at the end step, look at this. We're going to see a Lightning Bolt upstairs at Wyatt.
Trigger results.
Trigger for the Dragon Rage Channeler.
Bolt results, go through.
Right.
The Flex Ponder coming back.
The Flex Ponder. Pops the Ponder in the bin. And it does have the Pyro in hand. Pyroblast in hand here.
I actually like this play from J2, just giving a little bit of respect to Days here. Instead of untapping and then going like, Pyroblast, you're not going to be able to bolt you, he spaced them out, so well played.
Yep, well played indeed. And Jay is rewarded with the win in our second quarterfinal here, playing around all the cards that he possibly could to make sure that he gave himself the best chance to win. Unfortunately, the breakfast buffet has closed, and Wyatt Gibson bows out in our quarterfinal. But well done to Jay, who does seem to be a pretty practiced practitioner of this list. There's a few slight communications between the two players notwithstanding. Looking forward to seeing him in our semi-finals as well, Noah. So we're going to bring you those semi-finals as soon as we've got them ready. We can provide you with some updates off the back tables as well. We saw TK Strachan going up against Nick Ferreira. That's 4-color Beans versus 4-color Aggro. And Strachan was able to win 2-1 after sideboarding, picking up 2 wins, going down in game number 1. And then in the Boros Painter mirror, to the surprise of no one, Boros Painter was victorious, this time in the hands of Sean Sabia against Jack Kitchen. Jack was able to pick up game number 2, but ultimately it was Sean who got across the line and will be facing Jay in our semi-finals. We're going to get things lined up for those semi-finals and bring you coverage then. But before we head off to our next round there, any impressions that you had from the quarterfinals? Anything you want to chat about quickly, Noah, before we wrap up our coverage of the quarters?
Yeah, I mean, I would say 2 pretty standard matchups. You know, Grixis Delver versus Cephalid Breakfast, something that you see a lot. I would say that Grixis is pretty heavily favored, especially with the addition of Orcish Bowmasters. You just have so many cards that interact well. And then on the other side, we saw Cass take out a Storm deck with her Cradle control deck. So something that I wouldn't expect on the other hand. So really, really interesting. Two matches not going exactly the way that I think I would have expected, but really well played Magic so far.
All right, well, looking forward to seeing both of our victors in the quarters make it through to the semis. We're going to get things set up, take a quick break, and we'll be back with the semi-finals of the Legacy Championships here at Eternal Weekend North America. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Legacy after this.